Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. In this video we will be talking about whether it is possible to perform certain core aspects of an eye examination safely at home in order to try and give you an indication as to whether you should indeed attend for a full eye examination. If you want to learn more about this, then please stay tuned. Home eye examinations can provide valuable information and insights as to whether you have a potential underlying problem for which you should seek proper medical attention and therefore examination and evaluation. With the content that I am about to share with you in this video, essentially if you fail at any component, then you must and you should book an eye examination. The first core component of any eye evaluation or examination is the check-in of an individual's visual function from the perspective of their visual acuity. So you will be familiar with the reading chart that optometrists have in their practices, and you will remember and recall that the letters at the top of the chart are quite large and they progressively become smaller and more challenging. This most basic assessment of visual function can provide valuable clues as to whether, for example, you fulfill the legal requirements to drive in the country that you live in. Moreover, certain professions will have specific requirements which you may need to fulfill in order to enter that profession, so it can also provide you with valuable information such as this. Unless you have a condition or disease of the eye that means you are unable to read towards the bottom of a reading chart, then most patients as a general rule should indeed be able to get towards the bottom of the chart or quite close. This is obviously a rough generalized rule. So for example, if you are unable to read very small letters on a reading chart, the questions that need to be asked are why? Is it because, for example, you require glasses that you are not wearing currently? Or is it because you indeed have a disease or condition of the eye that prevents you from seeing any better? So a at-home test for checking your vision can be simply done by reading a chart at a set distance. So in the link in the description below, I've attached a PDF of a classic Snellen chart. If you place this chart 6 meters away from where you are positioned, you can then start to attempt to read the letters. The key thing is to cover each eye in turn and attempt the same task. So for example, you would cover one eye. So in this instance, I'm covering my left eye. I would then look at the reading chart that is placed 6 meters away. I would then try and read down to the bottom of the chart or as far down the chart as I physically am able to do so. And then once I've reached my limit, I simply read off the numbers that are associated with that line, and then that translates into an actual measurement that I can use to quantify how well I have read. As a rough general rule, the further down the chart that you get, the better your level of vision is from a visual acuity point of view. In the description below, I've also linked an app called MD Calc, for which I have no financial disclosure and no personal interest in. However, such apps exist, and this particular app will allow you to measure your vision at a set distance, and it will give you the number associated with that level of vision. So therefore, it's easier and you have to do less work. The key thing to remember is to check each eye individually and then both eyes together. And that will give you the best overall picture of the level of your visual acuity or vision. If you have tried to check your vision on a chart and you have struggled to get down towards the bottom of the chart, what you can do in order to understand whether, for example, it's related to an underlying prescription that you have, but you have not got it currently in the form of glasses, is to create the pinhole effect. The pinhole effect is essentially where you look through a small hole at a set target. So in this instance, it's the reading chart that you're trying to get as far down as possible. What the pinhole effect does is it effectively sharpens the vision by reducing the amount of scattered light that is coming into the eye and is blurring the vision. By doing this, you can understand, for example, whether you do potentially have an underlying prescription and whether therefore glasses will be helpful to you. So this is a very good example of a test that can be used to give you, again, indications and clues as to what may potentially be going on with your level of vision. So that summarizes visual acuity / vision testing. And remember, this is the most basic form and level of vision assessment. Potentially linked to needing a prescription is the assessment of whether one has astigmatism or not. I have made videos previously on astigmatism, which I will link down below for you to watch. But essentially, astigmatism is when instead of your eye being ball-shaped, it is rugby ball-shaped. And that has implications for essentially the type of correction you will need in your glasses in order to help you to see better. But ultimately, think of astigmatism as the shape of your eye, and therefore you requiring slightly different glasses. The glasses, for all intents and purposes, will look exactly the same as somebody that does not have astigmatism, but you do have a slightly more complex component to your prescription than somebody that does not have astigmatism. So how do you check for this at home using a home test? The astigmatic dial is a test which you can see on screen now. Essentially, this dial needs to be looked at. You look at this dial with each eye in turn, exactly the same as how you checked your vision. So you will do it for the right eye, you will do it for the left eye, and this can again provide clues as to whether you have underlying astigmatism. Essentially, whilst you are looking at the astigmatic dial, what you want to do is look at this central target, and whilst you are looking at the central target, if you have no astigmatism, all of the lines on the chart or on the dial will appear to look exactly the same. If, however, you do have astigmatism, then in certain directions, those lines will appear clear, whereas in other directions, they will potentially appear blurry. And this is how you crudely use this test to ascertain and judge whether you do have astigmatism as an underlying component of a prescription. The next test of visual function assessment is checking one's color vision. Color vision status can provide very important clues as to potentially an undiagnosed underlying color blindness, or it can provide valuable clues as to whether an individual's optic nerve head is functioning properly or not. This can be seen in certain pathologies, a classic one being patients that have swelling of their optic nerve head due to optic neuritis, which can be associated with an underlying diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. So how do you check for color vision? Well, again, you're going to do this for each eye individually. So again, you would cover one eye and you would look at a standardized color vision chart or assessment booklet. This again can be done online or via certain apps. And again, in the description below, I will link some of these options for you. But if you look on screen now, this is an example of a color vision plate. What you would do, as I said, is cover one eye and you would simply read through the relevant number of pages within the book to see whether you could identify what numbers are present. Some booklets or online tests will have pages or plates that have no actual number. These are designed to also assess your color vision. So do not feel as though you are being tricked. It's actually part of the assessment. A color vision assessment would be done at a close working distance, so approximately 40 centimeters away or within arm's length. You must ensure that you have good lighting, and if you do actually wear glasses for close-up work, then ensure that you have them on. There are different types of color vision deficiency. So there's a classic one known as red-green color blindness. You can then get green deficiency, red deficiency, etc. The different plates within the Ishihara color vision test are designed to try and detect these different types of color blindness. So essentially, all color blindness is not the same. Once the Ishihara color vision test identifies that you may have a problem, then it can also grade the severity of the problem that you have, and this can be done with extended versions of the test if indeed an initial issue is flagged up on basic initial assessment. So remember, unless you have an underlying problem, when you test the right eye followed by the left eye, or the left eye followed by the right eye, the score for each eye should be exactly the same. So let's put this to the test. On screen now, what number can you see? How about now? And how about now? On screen now are the results for the 3 color vision plates that I showed you. The next very good and important assessment of visual function is visual field testing. The important thing to try and describe here is the difference between vision, visual acuity, and visual field or field of vision. These phrases can confusingly be used interchangeably, however they are very different things. Vision and visual acuity refer to the smallest size letter that you can see on a reading chart, whereas field of vision and visual field testing will be checking your peripheral vision, and that is a very good indicator of someone's overall visual functioning. There are lots of reasons why visual field testing is done. The classic example is that of glaucoma. In glaucoma, which is a condition where you get damage to the nerve in the back of the eye, and subsequently you lose fibers that transmit information from the eye to the brain, you can start to lose your peripheral field of vision as nerve fibers get damaged. This may not necessarily affect your actual level of vision on a reading chart. So for example, somebody with glaucoma who has quite significant glaucoma may still be able to read the bottom letter on a reading chart. However, if you checked their field of vision, which is their overall or peripheral vision, they may have lost a substantial amount of this, and this is what's referred to as tunnel vision. So you can see this represented in a schematic diagram on screen now. So that's why it's very important to check each of these things individually. In contrast to glaucoma, where you lose your peripheral field of vision, is macular degeneration. In macular degeneration, you lose your central vision whilst maintaining your peripheral vision. So again, it's very important to understand this. So somebody with macular degeneration can have a double impact on their central vision if, for example, they have a cataract and they also have macular degeneration, so the effect gets compounded. So a simple way that you can do a visual field assessment is an online check, for example. So if you have a look on screen now, you will see the recording of a certain test that I attempted earlier on. What you will see, and also by the way this test is linked in the description below, is there's a cross in the center of the page. A visual field assessment begins by good fixation. Again, you would do this test with each eye individually. So what you would do is cover one eye, you would look at the cross within the center of the screen, and whilst maintaining fixation on this central cross, you will be required to voice or click a button or record and identify that you have seen a light in your peripheral field of vision. If you were doing a formalized computerized version of such a test in a optometry practice, for example, you would have a joystick in your hand, and every time you saw the light you would click the button or on the joystick. Ultimately, the more lights you can see and the further out from the center of fixation that you can see these lights, that indicates that you have a full and wide field of view. Another test of visual function is that of Amsler grid assessment. This is well known to patients with macular degeneration, as it can be used by them to monitor for ongoing changes and potential progression from dry to wet macular degeneration. If you do not know much about macular degeneration, then please do watch my video about macular degeneration, which I will link below. On screen now, I have shared a few examples of Amsler grid assessments in patients who have certain pathologies and conditions, and how the chart looked to them when they attempted it. That brings us to the end of this video about home testing. The key things to remember are I've discussed the key principles behind these tests and how to perform them. If you struggled with any of these tests whatsoever, then you should see an eye care professional. Regardless of this home test, you should be attending to see your optometrist regularly at the prescribed stated interval by your healthcare professional. This is because lots of eye conditions will initially not have any symptoms associated with them, and it is only later in the disease course that the condition would become apparent to a patient, glaucoma being a prime example. So remember, please do try this test. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to potentially indicate to you whether you are functioning well from a vision point of view and whether you do have any cause for concern and therefore whether you should visit an eye care professional. This test does not, I repeat, does not replace a comprehensive eye assessment performed by a qualified eye care practitioner. If you have found this video useful, please do give it a thumbs up, like, please do comment, and please do share it with your family and friends. Until next time, thank you very much.